But anyways, let's go ahead and get into it. I had to reorder my whole damn thing. I actually was planning on shooting the podcast yesterday, but I wanted to watch the NBA Western Conference semifinals. So I had to actually reorder my whole podcast, the order of which I'm going to go in. Because initially I wasn't going to start with this. But then I watched the semifinals, and let's just get into it. Anyways, kickoff. NBA. Clippers, Nuggets, Game 7. I watched it last night. And usually that is a night I usually record on Tuesdays. So right now I'm recording on Wednesday, but that's besides the point. I purposely, and also was kind of lazy, but purposely watched the Game 7, because I wanted to put this in this week's podcast and have it fresh. But man, I am speechless. I am very upset. I'm very upset, not at the results we got, but at the Los Angeles Clippers for fooling everybody and making people think that they were going to be the new kings of LA. We were bamboozled. We were fooled. We were tricked. Anything that you can come up with, that's what happened to us. Because when Kawhi Leonard chose the Clippers, we automatically thought that they were going to the Western Conference Finals. At least I did. Because he joined a Clippers team that had great depth, had defensive pieces already in place. Bench was in place, great ownership, management, coaching, everything was lining up to where once Kawhi got there and essentially got there with Paul George, that was part of the deal of Kawhi going to the LA Clippers. We were to believe that they were going to go to the Western Conference Finals. And it's not our fault. That's not our fault. Because the Clippers played well against the Golden State Warriors last year in the playoffs. If you guys do not know, I believe they took the Warriors to Game 6 with no star. 0 stars. They took the Warriors to Game 6. And if you add a Paul George and Kawhi Leonard to that team, they should be a finals contender. So I am stunned. I am absolutely stunned. So again, I watched the game last night. The Nuggets ended up killing the Clippers 104-89. And let's put everything into perspective. The Clippers were leading at halftime by 2 points. They're leading at halftime by 2 points. Everything looked good. I know the Clippers had a big lead early, but that was immediately brought down by the Nuggets. And the Nuggets, from that point on, just never looked back and kept it rolling. I mean, they outscored the Clippers by 10 points in the third, and then the Clippers did not score a basket for the first 7 minutes of the first quarter, give or take. It was an absolute embarrassment by the Clippers. I blame this on Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, playoff P. I blame it on both of them and Doc Rivers. What the hell is going on in LA? I wanted to see a LA Western Conference Finals, LeBron versus Kawhi, Lakers versus Clippers. Who is going to take over LA? I'm glad that they saved my time, because now we know the Clippers aren't, they ain't it. They ain't it. They're still the stepbrother that gets picked on, the little brother that gets picked on. I don't know. The Lakers still run LA, and that's the bottom line when it comes to that. But let me go ahead and go to the stat line here, the little box score. Let me call out a couple people. Kawhi Leonard, let's see, 14 points, 43 minutes. I mean, I really should start. I should really start calling out their shooting percentages, but I'm not gonna do that. The game's over. They lost by over. At one point, they're down by 20. In the fourth quarter, they're down by 20. I mean, in the third quarter, when they got outscored by the Nuggets, I was like, okay, the Nuggets got their run. Let the Clippers come back. And for whatever reason, I was fooled to thinking that the Clippers would have a run in the fourth when they, for all of you that have watched Game 5 and Game 6, the Clippers got outscored in the fourth quarter every single time. For whatever reason, I was fooled. I am a fool for thinking that the Clippers were going to have a run in the fourth quarter and make some stuff happen. I mean, Kawhi Leonard couldn't get anything going. Lemon Pepper Lou couldn't get nothing going. Paul George couldn't get anything. He had a 3-point shot from the corner and hit the backboard. I mean, it was awful on baseline. Sorry, he had a baseline three lined up and hit the backboard. It was awful. I mean, at that point, I was like, "There's no hope here. There's nothing to see here." Clippers are an embarrassment. This is embarrassing for the Clippers. They gave away the riches to get Paul George to LA. Kawhi Leonard left the Toronto Raptors to go to LA. And to be honest, if you could make an argument that the Toronto Raptors would be probably favored to win the East right now over the Heat if Kawhi Leonard was there. They're probably favored to win the finals. If Kawhi Leonard was still as a Toronto Raptor, where he had Kyle Lowry, who probably would have ended up kind of helping Kawhi in any type of drought that the Clippers had in the beginning of the fourth quarter. That was one of the worst displays of basketball, one of the biggest choke jobs I've ever seen. And this is up there with Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook when they choked against the Golden State Warriors. But the difference between that is Golden State Warriors was the best regular season team of all time. They broke the Chicago Bulls winning record in the regular season that year. They were up on the Warriors 3-1 and let the Warriors come back, but they had Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook and choked away that lead. This is bigger than that because I don't think anyone is confusing the Denver Nuggets with the Golden State Warriors of a couple years ago. Or a few years ago when Kevin Durant was on OKC. I don't think anyone is confusing them with him. And I owe the Denver Nuggets an apology. I owe them an apology. I thought they were going to get hit with the gentleman's sweep. I thought the series was over in 5 after the Clippers went up 3-1. Man, was I wrong. Denver has heart. The first team ever in NBA history to come back from 3-1 in 2 different series in the same season, in the same postseason. The Denver Nuggets got heart. They're probably still going to lose to the Lakers, or they will lose to the Lakers. But I'm rooting for them. I'm rooting for the Denver Nuggets. They got a new fan as far as someone that's rooting for them. I'm not going to be a Denver Nuggets fan. I'll be rooting for them in the playoffs. But, man, Jamal Murray, you got Nikola Jokic. I mean, these guys could play, man. I mean, it was unbelievable what I seen in the fourth quarter yesterday. Not because it wasn't unbelievable because they done it in game 5 and 6. It was just unbelievable that usually the team with the best player in game 7 always wins. And it was an absolute embarrassment because if anyone was to rank the player rankings of the players from the Clippers and the Nuggets side by side before the season or before the series started, you would probably have Kawhi Leonard and then Paul George. And now both of those guys couldn't show up in the fourth quarter. And now we don't have the LA Western Conference Finals that we were hoping for, that we were anticipating, that we were licking our chops over. We don't have that. We've got the Denver Nuggets and the Los Angeles Lakers. And everybody is already saying Lakers in 5. I don't know about that one. I don't know. I'm not going to disrespect Denver again. They got my respect. I don't know how the hell they pulled it off. Denver is at least going to go 6 games. I have Denver winning game 1. The Lakers I believe they've lost game 1 for the first 2 series they've played already. Yeah, they lost Portland game 1, and they lost the Rockets game 1. So I anticipate the Nuggets game 1 will win over the Lakers. If they lose, that's not going to be a good sign for the Nuggets. So they might as well hit while the iron's hot because they have played, 14 games already to the Lakers 10. And they have they got a 2-day break. Meanwhile, the Lakers had probably like a week off. So the Nuggets will come in ready to go. The Lakers probably will have some issues getting their continuity together, for game 1. But again, I anticipate the Nuggets winning game 1. I think they're underdogs by 6.5. I would take that personally. But this is going to be a good series. I'm very interested in seeing that series. The Clippers, I don't know what the hell they're going to be doing. I know that Landry Shamet getting hurt definitely did not help them. Their best three-point shooter, he has not been shooting well, but at least, he's a guy that come in, play a little bit of defense, and hit the three ball, which obviously is what they needed yesterday, especially late because, again, Lemon Pepper Lou, Paul George were not hitting three-point shots. These guys were missing everything. Landry Shamet could hit some big shots. We've seen it against the Golden State Warriors last year in the playoffs, but he gets hurt. I think I believe he rolled his ankle and still continued to play on it, hit a three, and then fouled so he could get out and then never came back. So that definitely sucked. I'm curious to see what happens with the Clippers next year. I know they had a lot of load management. How is that going to affect them next year? Are they going to allow Kawhi Leonard to do a lot of load management? Because one of the excuses that fans are saying, Doc Rivers is saying, is that these guys just haven't had enough time to play together. The chemistry is not fully there. Well, whose fault is that? Well, you got these guys sitting out, load management, quote unquote. Doc Rivers is one of the best coaches in the NBA. I'm not going to take that excuse from him. I have nothing but respect for Doc Rivers, but I believe he has one more year. I think Steve Ballmer should give Doc Rivers one more year to right the ship. If he's not able to make it to the finals, I don't care if they make it to the Western Conference Finals. If they don't make it to the finals next year, I think Doc Rivers may be gone. And as a Philadelphia 76ers fan, we would love to have Doc Rivers. So if they do end up firing Doc Rivers this year, hey, Sixers, Elton Brand, get on the damn phone, call Doc Rivers, get him to Philadelphia. I'll be okay with that. I'm cool with that. We stated earlier the Los Angeles Lakers will be meeting the Denver Nuggets in the Western Conference Finals. They beat the Rockets in 5 games. Absolute embarrassment by the Rockets. I honestly anticipated the Rockets taking. If you're going to ask me if you're going to tell me one of these series in the Western Conference semifinals is going to go to Game 7, I would have said the Rockets Lakers. But what the Denver Nuggets did to the Clippers, as far as take them to Game 7, I would have anticipated from the Houston Rockets. But the Rockets choked like they always do. I know Mike D'Antoni is not coming back. He already said he's not coming back as the head coach for the Houston Rockets. The Clippers should have beat the Nuggets in 5 games, but they did not. They let them live for Game 5. They let them live for Game 6. And then Game 7, they quit. The Clippers flat out quit. And I know I'm done with the Clippers and Denver Nuggets talk, but I'm going back to it, damn it. They quit. They quit in the third. They quit in the fourth, especially in the fourth. I mean, to not score for the first 7 minutes of the quarter, I mean, that's embarrassing, man. It was horrible basketball. These guys, I mean, bad shots, bad offense. It was everything. Everything bad. Everything that could have went wrong for the Los Angeles Clippers, and they flat out quit. And they're 2 superstars, at least one superstar, and Kawhi Leonard was not able to help them. Playoff P, this is what we expect from him. I mean, in these Game 7s, these series-defining games, Paul George never shows up. So I'm used to seeing this from Paul George. Kawhi Leonard, I expected him to live up to the bill, and he did not. Kawhi Leonard, Paul George should be embarrassed, and so should Clippers Nation for thinking that they were going to win in NBA Finals with this team. But anyways, back to the Lakers, Rockets. 5 games, Rockets are out of there. James Harden is a good scorer. Let's not get that confused. He's a good scorer. He is just not a winner when it comes to postseason. He'll win in the regular season. He'll get MVP. He'll get some scoring titles. He may be one of the top scorers in NBA history, but the dude is not a winner in the postseason, and this has always been the case, even going back to Arizona State, which I went to. I got nothing but respect for James Harden as far as, he's getting his as far as his points. But the dude is not leading the team to the championship. He's not leading the team to the championship. I've seen this over and over. Different year, same song. I've seen this in the Pac-12 tournaments. I've seen this in NCAA tournament. I've seen this everywhere you can see. College, pros. I don't know what to do. But the Rockets, there's no hope for them. They'll just be a perennial playoff team that potentially could cause some upsets and cause some long series, maybe 6-7 games, but they're not winning no championship. So let's make sure we keep that in perspective. Now, another Game 7 that did occur since the last podcast was the Boston Celtics versus the Toronto Raptors. I love this series. I loved the Game 7 that I seen. Two teams that did not want to lose. Boston just wanted it more and honestly was the more talented team. For those of you that have been listening to my podcast, I predicted Boston to go to the NBA Finals. And honestly, I was very scared of my pick. I think I talked about this on the last podcast. I was very scared of my pick that they were going to Game 7 with the Toronto Raptors. I was not that confident that they were going to beat the Toronto Raptors after what I seen in Game 6. Man, it was a great Game 7. Boston ended up edging out the Toronto Raptors 92-87, led by Jason Tatum with 29 points. And Kemba Walker, in Game 7, he did have 14 points. I love Kemba Walker, man. As far as, and I'll get into this a little bit later, but he is the Boston Celtics closer. I don't care what no one says. I'm not just looking at points, and most of you fools are probably looking at points, but Kemba Walker is the closer for the Boston Celtics, and hopefully they recognize that. And based on what I've seen versus the Miami Heat, it looks like they know. Looks like they know. But Marcus Smart also playing big minutes, 43 minutes, 16 points. So he's been doing very well as also. So again, they edged out the Toronto Raptors. Nothing but respect for Toronto for making it this far. Honestly, I didn't anticipate Toronto taking Boston to 7 games. I would have predicted at least 5 or 6 that Boston would be able to close out Toronto. But Toronto is a good team, well coached. And again, if Kawhi Leonard was there, they would probably be favored to win the finals this year. But he decided to leave. And honestly, I don't fault him for that because I would prefer to live in LA as well instead of Canada. So I'm not, and no respect to Canada or Toronto, but LA is just a different scene. It's just different. So we'll just leave it at that. But anyways, Boston going into the Eastern Conference Finals, they met with Miami, who swept the Milwaukee Bucks. We talked about this in the last podcast. But Game 1 was nothing short of spectacular. Fireworks. It went into overtime, people. I think it got to the point where I thought that Boston had the game under wraps after the first quarter. So in the first quarter, it was 26-18. And I know that they were doing fairly well in the second quarter. Man, even going into the fourth quarter, Boston was going in with a pretty solid lead. I think they were up by 12 at some point in the fourth quarter. I closed my eyes. I stopped paying attention. All of a sudden, I come back and it's overtime. The Heat brought them into overtime. And from that point on, the Heat, pretty much did what they needed to do. One of the best blocks you'll ever see. One of the best blocks you'll ever see was in this game. I believe it was Bam Adebayo. Sorry about that. Bam Adebayo blocked the hell out of Jason Tatum at the rim. Again, one of the best blocks you'll ever see. I was stunned when I seen it. It was one of those. It was up there with LeBron and Iggy. It was one of those types of blocks. I don't know, man. That block right there is one of those. And I know it's just game one. But that block right there and this win by the Miami Heat when the Boston Celtics really should have won game 1 already has me concerned for the Boston Celtics. I think that, again, in the fourth quarter, they're up at least by double digits at one point. While Jimmy Butler is on the bench, and Miami was able to push it to overtime and get the win. But this is a statement win because Boston had this game in the bag, and for a devastating block like that to win the game, could be very detrimental to a young Celtics team that I picked to go to the finals. And man, again, for those of you that have not seen the Black, please go check that out. Again, I'm going for the Boston Celtics. I know I'm a Sixers fan. It's sacrilegious to go for the Celtics. I am a fan of basketball. It's different for football. For me, for football, that's where we set some rules. Basketball is kind of like, I root for the Sixers, but it is what it is. As far as I just want to see some good basketball. Football, no. I'm willing to dive by the Eagles side. I'll never root for the Cowboys. Never. I remember when the Patriots went undefeated, or they were undefeated going into the Super Bowl versus the Giants. Everybody was going for the Giants, unless you were a Patriots fan. I was going for the Patriots because the Giants are in our division. I'm not going for those fools. It's different for basketball for me. I'm not that serious about basketball. I do watch basketball. I'm a fan of basketball. Only in the playoffs, regular season, I cannot do because of the refereeing. Even the refereeing in the bubble has been it just pisses me off every time I watch basketball when I see these foul calls, especially when they're not foul calls. But I'm going for the Celtics in this series. This was a devastating loss in game 1. Hopefully they're able to recover in game 2. I think game 2 was a must win for the Celtics. And again, it's the start of the series, but that type of game 1, the way that it all played out for the Celtics, that is not good. That's not good. So hopefully the Celtics are able to get it back in game 2. I think the Celtics have the best chance of beating the Lakers in the finals, given that the Lakers make it to the finals, unless there's some miracle. Again, hey, I'm just the messenger. Unless there's some miracle that the Denver Nuggets beat the Lakers, I'm going to say that the Lakers are going to the finals. If I had to put money on it, I would say Lakers are going to the finals. And I would believe that the Celtics would give the Lakers a better run for their money than the Miami Heat. No disrespect to Jimmy Butler and the squad, Eric Spoelstra and them, but Boston has the young talent. They got guys coming off the bench. They got good coaching, and they got and Jimmy Butler's a closer, but Kemba Walker, man. Kemba Walker is the closer for the Boston Celtics. Anybody that has been watching their games knows that this is the case. Those mid-range jumpers where he crosses the person, steps back, hits the jumper, mid-range is pretty much an unstoppable move. He does it every single time. He's done this in college. He's done it in the NBA. This man's the closer. He's the closer for the Boston Celtics. And again, I'm excited for these two conference finals, but it's going to be a good one. So I will definitely be paying attention. Again, I don't get serious into basketball until it is the playoffs. So most of the time on this podcast, you will not hear me speak on NBA regular season unless something dramatic has happened, breaking news has happened, or it has to do with a game that I potentially have caught at the time, I've seen at the time. But for the most part, NBA playoffs, I'm on that. So crazy NBA. And we're excited to see it. I'm hoping for Lakers, Celtics. Again, those two storied franchises. I mean, who's not willing to see that type of basketball being played in the finals? They got so much history playing against each other. I'm excited to see that. Thanks for stopping by. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button for more fire sports takes. And for those of you who are on the go, make sure you subscribe to our full show, which airs every Thursday on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and a bunch more. Until then, I'm chucking it up, and I'll see you guys next time.